Okay, today we are talking about one of the most maligned albums ever to come out from a major artist. So, let's press the play on the virtual jukebox and welcome to the Tainted Tavern.
Welcome to the Tainted Tavern. Come sit inside for free.
Okay, today I'm talking about a 1986 album from Paul McCartney, and that is Press to Play. Now this album has always been divisive, especially among fans that are those that hate it. In fact, I seen one guy on the internet, on YouTube in fact, on a channel that he reviews mostly Beatles and Beatles related stuff, and he's got a lot of subscribers. But I seen this guy physically take his copy of Press to Play and rip it up into pieces. He was so disgusted by it. Now, I believe he only did that in order to get clicks, you know, because it's kind of clickbaity. I don't believe he ripped the album out for any real ideological sort of reason that he thought it was rubbish or therefore it didn't exist, because it's a precedent for that kind of thinking, you know. But anyway, he ripped it up. Personally, I think he's a dick. But I plan to do the opposite at the end of this video, to stay tuned to see my response to album destroying. Now, Press to Play came out in 1986. It followed a period when McCartney had a lot of big successes, at least musically. The three albums that preceded this, Tug of War, Pipes of Peace, and the soundtrack to the movie Give My Regards to Broad Street, were highly successful. At least Give My Regards to Broad Street was highly successful in terms of the soundtrack album. The film, not so much. But I digressed there. And this album then came out, and this was McCartney trying to sound modern, trying to sound relevant. I believe he was going through a bit of a phase at that time where he felt that he was no longer relevant to the music scene, which was being dominated by younger artists, and he felt that he had to modernize his sound. So he got in producer Hugh Padgham, who had been a massively successful record producer during the period. He'd worked with the Police, he'd worked with Genesis, he'd worked with Phil Collins. I don't think that last one is much of a recommendation. No, Phil Collins, no, not for me. And he also brought in Eric Stewart of 10cc as a co-songwriter, and McCartney and Stewart initially had a great chemistry, and they sat down in much the way McCartney had with John Lennon back in the day, and wrote facing each other with guitars, and the tracks on this album, they come up with some great songs. Now, I think the trouble with this is McCartney's always been a bit of a schizophrenic artist. You don't know what he's going to do next, but then the Beatles were always like that too. I mean, I believe that if it was possible, I don't believe it is, but if it was possible to find someone who never heard of the Beatles, had no knowledge of the Beatles, and you sat them down and played three albums to them back to back, let's say the Beatles' first album, Please Please Me, the final Let It Be, and pick something from the mid-period, let's pick Sgt. Pepper's, because that's really well known. But if you play these three albums to this person, excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat. That's better. But if you played these albums to that person, you could convince them, I believe, that it was three different bands, and they'd believe you. And that was the beauty of the Beatles. You never knew what to come next. And McCartney has been much the same throughout his solo career. I mean, he does a lot of safety stuff, but then all of a sudden he brings something out of left field. I mean, look at the simplicity of Wildlife following the hyper-produced excesses of Ram, or London Town, the lo-fi thing of London Town following the hugely successful Wings at the Speed of Sound. And even in his later years, you know, he has, personally I think McCartney's best album since the mid-70s is probably Electric Arguments, which is one of his most way-out albums and was done under the persona of the fireman. But that's the criticism that albums like Press to Play get, and this really annoys me, because you've got Tug of War, which is generally regarded as a classic album and is loved by a lot of fans. Personally, I love that album too, although I don't think it's as strong as Press to Play. Now, I know that's going to seem like a silly thing to say, and you're going to think I'm only saying that just to cause controversy, but let's be honest. I mean, Tug of War, brilliant songs on it. The title track, Tug of War, Year Today is lovely. Somebody Who Cares is great, you know. take it away to some extent, although that tends to go to AOR for me personally, but it's not a bad song. Wanderlust is absolutely excellent. Wanderlust, in fact, was so good that it turned up a couple of years later on Give My Regards to Broad Street. But there is so much, I mean, it contains Ebony and Ivory. And any album that contains Ebony and Ivory can't realistically lay claim to be a classic. And some of the disco-y tracks that McCartney did on there with Stevie Wonder. Not that I've got anything against Stevie Wonder, brilliant artist. Songs in the Key of Life, one of my favourite albums. But I don't think they work. And it was the same with the stuff he did with Michael Jackson. I mean, press to play. Sorry. Oh, whoa, what a mistake. I mean, say. Usually successful, sold a lot of records. But just because you sell a lot of records doesn't mean you're any good. I mean, look at Phil Collins. But that to me is not prime McCartney. So when McCartney comes out of his safety zone and tries to do something experimental to give fans something that they never fully expected, then he gets dissed for it, you know, and that I believe is the problem with Press to Play, or rather the perceived problem with Press to Play. I don't think it's a bad album at all. As I say, I would rate it certainly higher than Pipes of Peace, which was massively successful. That's a very weak album, and certainly higher than Tug of War, in my opinion, because whilst Tug of War has got several really good tracks, it's got a lot of filler, and I don't believe that Press to Play has any filler, well, with the possible exception of the title track, ironically, which is my least favourite track on the album. Now, I've made notes here, so I can make sure that I talk about everything that I intend to talk about. Okay, so produced by Hugh Padgham, who had previously worked with the Police and Phil Collins. 10cc's Eric Stewart collaborated on the songwriting with McCartney. McCartney had Phil Collins on drums on this. And at that period they were good friends before McCartney was condescending to him a few years later, and these days Phil Collins doesn't really like Paul McCartney, but there we are. Paul McCartney can be a divisive figure in himself. Now, okay, the album, by standards of McCartney at the time, was not a massive success. It got to number 8 in the UK charts, but it only managed to reach number 30 in the Billboard charts, which was a massive shock because there were a lot of high expectations for this album. It was the first album that McCartney recorded at his new Oxhead Studios in Sussex. And the song off your Pretty Little Egg was also the first cassette single that McCartney ever issued. Now the cover design, it's filmed, this photograph was taken with an old Hollywood box camera. It tells you on the back by here that George Hurrell took the cover photograph with the same box camera used in Hollywood in the 30s. The images in the center spread are stereo drawings made by Paul during the mixing of the album. So let's go through this track by track. Whoops, I dropped me vinyl, but I didn't rip it up. Okay, so the album opens with Stranglehold, which is a mid-tempo rocker with a brilliant bass line running through it, and right off you're hearing that 80s production style, which is largely due to Hugh Padgham's production. The drums are louder than you would have usually found on a McCartney album, and it does, one of the criticisms that people generally level at this album is that it sounds dated, and in that sense I suppose it does. But Stranglehold, it's a really good track. That follows on with a Good Times Come In, stroke Feel the Sun, which is something McCartney's done several times throughout his career and continues to do, in which he's got several unfinished song fragments and he works them together. So it's two songs stitched together. Now listening to this on a good hi-fi system, the separation of the backing harmonies are absolutely wonderful. That's followed by Talk More Talk, which is a standout song as far as I'm concerned. It's not so much a song as more musical collage, but it's a proper musical collage, you know, not something like Revolution Number 9, which should never have been done. This is an absolutely fantastic song. Footprints follows, which is a McCartney ballad. In terms of production, this is more simplistic than the other tracks on the album. It's more subdued in the instrumentation, but it's an absolutely fantastic song, and I give this 23 out of 10. That follows on then with Only Love Remains, which is the first big production number. It belongs in the same camp as previous McCartney, mega songs such as Wanderlust and that type of song. It's a love ballad. It's okay. It's nothing special, but it's okay. Then we've got, so that on the original album, because this album was the first McCartney album to be released simultaneously on cassette, CD, and LP. I'm talking about the LP here, so once we get to Only Love Remains, that becomes the end of side 1, and you flip over here. So the opening track on side 2 is the titular track, Press, which was the lead single, and this, it's okay, it's alright. I mean, it's jumpy, it's bouncy, it's enjoyable, but to me, it's the weakest song on the album because it seems like music by numbers. It's very poppy and designed to get radio airplay, and I just find it a bit shallow in comparison to the rest of the experimentation that largely is present on all of the other tracks on this album. Even Only Love Remains is not your straightforward, standard, lush, overly produced ballad. There is some experimentation in it. Okay, following that, we into Pretty Little Ed, which is an ideas overload of a song. This, I think, is probably the finest song on the album. I mean, I would sometimes sort of put that against something like Talk More Talk, and also Footprints, which I think is superb. So Pretty Little Ed, it's arguably the finest song on the album, and I think I would probably make that statement on one day, and probably the next day I would decide Talk More Talk is superior, or even Footprints. I do absolutely love Footprints. After that is Move Over Busker, which is okay, it's fun, and it's a kind of push rocker, along the lines of things like Magneto and Titanium Man, Hi, that type of, straightforward, catchy rocker, even to an extent something like Jet, but with these 80s production styles, which gives it a totally different sound. It's okay. After that is Angry, which is a song which is Paul is again stepping into kind of punky type mode, but it's not really an angry song. It's just more of a frustrated love song in a sense, and lyrics like, "What the hell gives you the right to rip up my LP?" or something like that. It's okay. Then the album ends with However Absurd, which is another big production number, but this is a very surreal love song in which McCartney plays with imagery and all that. It's really, really good. Now that's the end of the album. On CD you had several extra tracks. This is a later edition of the CD, which was part of the Paul McCartney collection, not the archive collection, but the Paul McCartney collection. Press to Play hasn't been released as part of the archive collection. More the pity, I would like to see an extended version of this album. But the original CD had extra songs such as Right Away, It's Not True, and Tough on a Tightrope. Right Away I think is very good. It's Not True, I'm not a lover of that. Particularly, it's okay. This also contains 2 bonus tracks. The original CD had 13 tracks. This part of the McCartney collection contains 15 tracks, so it's got 2 bonus tracks. The absolutely terrible Spies Like Us, bloody rubbish, and Once Upon a Long Ago, a longer version than the original song. So it's good. It's good. They're okay. I mean, I think Press to Play is a fantastic McCartney album. As I say, it's yet to be totally re-evaluated, but I believe that its day is coming. If you look at albums such as, say, Wings, Wildlife, that album was slated, was absolutely ripped apart when it was first released. Ditto McCartney 2 and the original McCartney album, all 3 of those. Ram is a perfect example of that. Ram wasn't exactly critically applauded at the time, nor was it a big fan favourite at the time, but these albums have come to be re-evaluated and seen as classic albums in their own right, and I believe Press to Play will one day be credited as being a brilliant album. It's a very brave album for Paul McCartney to be made, and he shouldn't be criticising for trying to be brave. I mean, too many people who follow a band or an artist will say, well, sometimes they just do the same thing over and over again. And yet when McCartney dares not to do the same thing over and over again, not to give us Yesterday Part 565, he gets criticised, and he, you know, it doesn't make no sense. And as for that guy I was talking about who ripped up Press to Play, his album of Press to Play on YouTube, in order to get likes and hits, here's my response to that. So this is my copy of Press to Play. I've also got the CD, as you see, but this is my vinyl copy. And what I'm going to do to it, rather than rip it up, I'm going to give it some real good love, baby. Because I do love this album, and you should too. Give it a spin. If you've never heard it, check it out. You can listen to it, you can stream it on Spotify or whatever it is you young people use. But it's a fantastic album. So thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and please subscribe. See you soon on the Tainted Tavern.
Come back soon.